What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Post and Out podcast with me and Niels. I'm Kyle Pereira from Last Word on Hockey. And how are you doing, Niels?
Pretty good. What's up?
Not much, but there has been a lot going on in the hockey world today, obviously. I mean, free agency began yesterday. But before we get into free agency and where certain people went and trades that happened, let's talk about the draft that happened a couple days ago. Who do you love, first of all, from the draft? I mean, it was a wild draft, a lot of strange picks, but a lot of really good picks too. What's one player that you loved? What was one selection that you really liked?
So I've been tooting his horn, so to say, for a long time here, and I had him ranked actually my top 15, right around 11 or 12. Noel Gunler took the Carolina Hurricanes at pick 41. I love his upside. I love his shot. His release is deadly. I think his defensive issues are very overblown. It's just kind of a mentality that everyone just followed without really paying attention. He's got size. He's not a small guy. I'm really high on him. I think he's going to be a 30 goal scorer in the NHL, and to get that type of value in the second round is incredible.
Yeah, obviously, this it was surprising to see him fall to a degree because obviously it was kind of expected with the character concerns, which I don't think they're character concerns much, but to each their own. And I kind of expected him to fall outside of the top 20, but I was shocked when he fell outside the first round. And the first thought I had was, and I sent it to the group chat, I'm like, Niels Hoglander 2.0? Is that what's really going on here? And he just kept falling and falling and falling. I mean, Shakir Mukhamadullin, Yegor Chinnikov taken before Noel Gunler didn't make sense to me at all. But again, just an absolutely bomb pick in the second round. And that had
Carolina
him right.
Hurricanes just keep on getting better, and like you have to wonder how much better are they going to get? They're killing every draft. They're stealing people, stealing players left and right.
Yeah,
And like Jack Quinn went eighth overall. I wouldn't take him over Noel Gunler.
that's a stretch, but yeah, I do
It's
see
a
what you're
hot
saying.
take, but I don't think I would. Like
I don't.
it's just
Yeah,
much
no,
like
I don't think I would take. I mean, it's debatable, but I'm kind of in the same boat. I agree. Um, One pick that I loved, and he kind of falls in the same kind of universe as Gunler, is Jan Mishak. I had him ranked 22nd. And he is one of those guys that a lot of people said, not much offensive upside, and just a very defensively responsible prospect with, again, not much upside, and kind of like an Anton Lundell, but not nearly at that same level. But I was really high on Jan Mishak, and one of the biggest things that was against Jan Mishak was his skating ability. Um, a lot of people looked at him and said, and I working for Last Word on Sports, I know Ben Kerr really well. I read almost all of his articles on prospects and what he's gathered. And he said that Jan Mishak had kind of a herky jerky stride, wasn't very technically sound. But I try to watch, especially players that come from Europe to Canada or North America, wherever they end up going. I try to watch as many European games as I can too, just to see what from where they played in Europe on that big ice surface and how it translated to the CHL. And when he was playing in Europe, Jan Mishak had, I mean, he was a really good skater and he was fast. He was winning races consistently. He just looked confident. He had a very technical stride from my viewings of him in Europe. And when he went to the CHL, I can kind of see where Ben Kerr kind of got that idea of him having not a great stride because he didn't look that all that fast, and he didn't look like he was moving at full speed. He did lack short area quickness, which I saw out in Europe as well, and that also contributed on the smaller ice surface, especially. But I still think he has potential as a skater, and one of the biggest knocks on him really isn't a knock at all. Again, his defensive game is excellent. I wouldn't say, again, he's not at the level of Anton Lundell, but he is a very strong two-way forward of the same ilk of a Sean Couturier or Ryan O'Reilly, but like a tier or two lower. And he still has good offensive upside. I mean, he's still a solid player overall. He drives the net, which again I've talked about before, and how that can translate really, really well to the NHL level, especially on the power play. And those are things that I feel like people need to pay attention to. That sort of style of driving to the net, it works. And just he uses his anticipation really well, which shows a good hockey IQ. And overall, it's something that can translate really well to the NHL level. It's just I feel like he lacked confidence in his game a little bit when he came over, but he was a steal in the second round, for sure.
Mid second round.
What was that?
Not even the early second, but like
Yeah,
back
exactly. Yeah,
second round. Incredible
it
value.
was it was an excellent selection.
It's it's a completely new environment for him. Different size rink, different play style, different teammates, and he just kind of got plugged in and he had to learn on the fly.
Yeah,
And I think learning how to think the game can make you move faster, and just little tiny differences in play style can really throw you off.
and I feel like he handled it really, really well too. That's again, like you said, it's not easy to transfer your game on a big ice rink with veteran teammates to a small ice rink with players of the same age as you that you've never played with before. I mean, it's a very strange switch, and he handled it really, really well. And that's why I had him ranked higher than I feel like most people would. So yeah, I think the Montreal Canadiens got a wonderful steal, and Jan Mishak easily a steal for me, especially at 48th overall. That's value pick certainly. And the Montreal Canadiens made a first round selection, even though they in my opinion, nailed their second round pick at 48th overall with Mishak. The first overall pick was not so great, and you wanted to talk about Caden Gooley, that whole selection there.
So I've gotten into my fair share of arguments about Caden Gooley, and it's a fairly controversial pick in that he has size and he's a great skater, which can be a lethal combination. If he gets everything together, he could end up being a great player. But I don't like the way he thinks the game offensively. I don't see the upside, and I don't think he's going to be anything past a number 5, number 6 type defenseman. I could be wrong, and maybe he learns the game better and he starts making better decisions in transition off the rush. But right now, I just don't see it. The mistakes he makes, it's just, I'm not a huge fan of that pick at all, especially not 14th overall. You don't take the safe bet in the top 15 in a draft this deep. Just not a good decision, in my opinion, for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And there were other players that were available as well that were really good. I mean, I think of a William Wallander that was taken 32nd overall in the second round. I mean, there's a multitude of guys that they could have taken that would have been better options, in my opinion, if they took a forward. I mean, obviously, they have a stacked forward core of prospects out in Montreal. I mean, they've done a wonderful job with prospects out there, but I mean, they could have had a much better player. Noel Gunler could have been an excellent pick. I don't think anybody would have looked at that and said, wow, that's a bad pick. No. Noel Gunler at 16, people would have looked at that and said, I'm glad Montreal took that risk, that character risk, which really, again, isn't really there. And teams would have been applauding them, or not teams, but fans would have been applauding them for that selection of Noel Gunler. Caden Gooley, like you said, he's an offensive liability. Again, big guy, great skater, and if, like you said, if he's able to put the puzzle together, he could be a really good defenseman. The problem is he seems way too far off, in a sense. And where he was selected, the Montreal Canadiens are probably expecting him to make it to the NHL sooner. And I feel like with that in mind, if they rush him to the NHL, he'll never pan out. He's a project, in my opinion, in every way. There's just though every time he touches the puck, it seems like he's playing hot potato. He just doesn't want it, and he doesn't know what to do with it when he has it. Off the puck, he's excellent. Like you said, he's excellent in the defensive zone. He is a shutdown defender in every right, but he doesn't know what he's doing when he gets the puck on his stick. He just looks lost.
And there's a few things you can't teach in hockey. One of them is size, which he does have, but it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to learn to think the game
Yeah.
better. Like you can't really teach smarts. You just have to try to do your best and pick it up on the fly.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure he'll be able to put it together. I don't see it at all. We'll see. Prospects are weird. The way the human brain works, especially in a game like hockey, everything's fluid and everything can change really quick. But I'm just not a huge fan of it as of right
Oh, for sure. Another player that I agree is taken a little higher than what I would have liked is Jack Quinn, taken eighth overall. Don't like it. I don't like it at all. And Jack Quinn's an excellent prospect. And I actually was on his side to a degree because a lot of people said he was a high risk, high reward selection, boom or bust type prospect. I saw that everywhere, pretty much that I looked at. Oh, he's a boomer bust prospect. You know, if he's able to translate his goal scoring, he will be an excellent selection. If he doesn't, there's nothing else to his game. He'll be a bust. Like, I disagree with that 100%. From all the games that I've watched, he is more than capable in the defensive zone. He does an excellent job with body positioning and stick positioning. He is more than capable in his own end. He's solid in transition. He's good with a puck on a stick. He just knows what he's doing. He's got that awareness when he has the puck. And again, he's got a good shot. Um, but his shooting statistics were inflated. So while everyone's out here saying that his shooting ability is what is going to make or break his career is completely wrong, but also right at the same time. I'm more focused on can his defensive game translate because his shooting, again, super inflated, up past 20% shooting percentage this season. And another thing that I'm concerned about is the quality of competition that he was facing. Because Marco Rossi, he was taking all the tough matchups in that first line, and he was not playing with Marco Rossi. So his statistics were not from leaning on Marco Rossi on the ice, but he still relied heavily on Marco Rossi to eat up those tough minutes, take on the tough competition from the opposing team. So he faced lesser competition shift by shift than most prospects of his ilk would have faced. So that opened up the ice for him as well. So he wasn't facing players that were necessarily at his skill level. And that's a big difference. And that helped in him scoring the over 40 goals at the junior level, which is, or over 50 goals, excuse me, at the junior level, which is absurd. Buffalo took him at eighth overall because they need to prove to Jack Eichel that they're trying to build a team around him. And I get it. And getting a scorer does that 100%. But Jack Quinn is one of those guys that I do not think he'll be able to translate his goal scoring at all. His off the puck awareness is not there. When he isn't with the puck, especially in the offensive zone, when he doesn't have the puck, he just kind of stands, doesn't move his feet. He doesn't look to exploit defensive zone coverages. He doesn't do much. He just kind of stands. You know, he doesn't move. There's no off the puck movement or awareness that I've seen from Jack Quinn, which hurts his upside offensively for me. I think he is a safe pick. I think Buffalo will get a guy that, if it doesn't work out completely, will still be a capable third line winger with defensive upside, penalty kill upside. But I feel like taking him that high, their expectations are going to be really high. And I feel like Sabres fans and management will be extremely disappointed when, or if, I should say, his goal scoring takes a hit, which I'm expecting, and overall his offensive upside just gets lost to some degree. He will not live up to the eighth overall hype, I don't think. Um, it just, at the end of the day, it wasn't a great pick. Like I said, he is a very, very good prospect. I had him ranked 15th in this draft. Would I have taken him top 15? That's debatable. He wasn't a tier that went all the way down to 17, so he wouldn't have been that far out of the top 15 if I was a GM. But would I take him eighth overall over guys like Anton Lundell, over guys like Cole Perfetti, Marco Rossi, who was taking a pick later? Would I take him over those guys? Absolutely not. I feel like Buffalo is just over anticipating what Jack Quinn can become. And I know you agree with me, Niels.
now. As much as I love Jack Quinn and he might translate, even if you're going for pure goal scorer, I don't know. I get what they're doing, and I think to a point it's kind of the panic button in Buffalo right now. They feel like they have to win now. Because if Jack Eichel leaves, this franchise is going to crumble. Like it's game over.
Even if they wanted to win now, Jack Quinn is not NHL ready. So
No.
I feel like they did that for really no reason. I think it was more a panic button hit. Like you said, they want to win now, but I think it's not so much they want to win now as opposed to we want to keep Jack Eichel. Um,
Yeah.
so I think they did that more for Jack Eichel than they did for themselves. But if they really, Marco Rossi was right there, right in their laps. I mean, he was supposed to be taken in the top 5.
Even Cole Perfetti.
And he's, yeah, like, yeah, Goal Perfetti, his nickname.
Gunler.
I would have taken Gunler.
Yeah. Over Quinn. Speaking of a goal scorer, Columbus did take a prospect, and apparently they had him ranked in their top 10 after interviewing their GM.
Cole Perfetti?
Uh, Igor Chinnikov. He didn't know it was coming. Apparently, they woke him up early in the morning, and he just stumbles out of bed. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you're a first-round pick," and they had him ranked in the top 10. And I think he'll be a good player, but that's a little bit excessive. What do you think about that one?
They could have had him in the third, fourth, even potentially fifth round, if they really wanted to. Again, to go back on this, you had Noel Gunler available. You had Dawson Mercer, I believe, was there too. He would have been an excellent pick. I would have loved that pick if he was taken that late in the first round. I would have loved that. Jan Mishak was available. Zion Niebeck was available. Um, Emile Andre was available. You had William Wallander, Helge Grans, Marat Kuznetsov, John Jason Paterka. Ryan O'Rourke is another one. I mean, they had so many guys that they could have taken while also getting Chinakhov if they really wanted him in the mid to late rounds of the draft. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
It's just questionable because like I don't think anyone else had him ranked anywhere near the first round.
No.
Like there's no way. And yes, he's doing pretty well in the KHL right now, which is impressive for someone who's young, still a prospect. But it's just I don't know. We'll see.
This could come back to bite Columbus really bad.
Speaking of another player that I wouldn't touch in the top 100, I don't think I would touch him until the fifth, sixth round. Just not a fan of him at all. My man, Big Shaq.
Oh, Shakir Mukhamadullin.
Kamadulin. Hell of a name. Not a great prospect, in my opinion.
He's one of those guys that he's a big body, got a big slap shot from the point, and he's a decent skater for his size, especially for his size. He's a good skater for his size. That's it. It's not like he's a terrible player. Again, he's a player I would have been fine taking in the mid to late second round. I feel like he would have been decent in that range. But for me, he was a third round prospect. Like third round would have been a great spot to take him. Um, First round, not so much. Not so much. I don't see that. Yeah, just again, he's not a bad player. I'm not trying to paint a picture of him being bad. It's just so many better options. If they wanted a defenseman, again, William Wallander, he's an offensive defenseman. If that's what you want, he's a big body. He's 6'4". He might be slim, but he's 6'4". He's got good size. Why not take him? I mean, he's a much more developed prospect, much more refined, and has a lot more upside than Shakir. Ryan O'Rourke is a very safe prospect. He's a big body, defensively capable as well. Why not take him if you really want, a good defenseman? It's just it didn't make sense. Similar to the Columbus pick of Igor Chinikov, they could have taken him later. So another pick that I loved was Tristan Robbins in the second round to the San Jose Sharks. Hate it because it wasn't a Tampa. Love it because of the player. And I know I'm known on Twitter as the guy who loves Tristan Robbins, but why not talk about him some more, right? Tristan Robbins, just as a person, is incredible. Very humble person, very quiet, doesn't really talk a whole lot, but he knows, like he knows his strengths. I had an interview with him a few months back, and he talked about how his skating was going to be the difference between whether or not he makes it. And I mean, that's 100% true. Um, he's an elite skater, and a scout on the Athletic actually talked about how he's a Swiss Army knife type of player. Couldn't agree with that statement more. I believe it was Corey Pronman from the Athletic who made that statement about Tristan Robbins, and he is, outside of his skating, he's a jack of all trades, master of none type of player. Again, the reason why I say excluding his skating is because he is an elite skater. From the technical ability all the way down to just his pure speed and agility, his skating is a weapon. When it comes to his offensive abilities, he has a really good shot, albeit a bit inconsistent, but he's got a very, very good shot that teams can build on. He could be a 15 to 20 plus goal scorer from year to year at the NHL level, if he's able to translate his offensive game, of course. He can stick handle in a phone booth. I mean, he has incredible hands, and he can deke at full speed, which not a lot of people are capable of. It's a very rare trait to have, but when you have it, it can be a weapon. Just like his skating ability, his stick handling at full speed can be a weapon, and that opens up the ice for him. Because if he can make a quick move, using his skating ability mixed with his stick handling ability to beat one or two defenders in a quick little move, whatever he pulls off, and he opens up the ice, not just for himself but for teammates. And time again, I found myself just watching him pull off a quick move, which pays massive dividends after the move, often leading to a goal for himself or him setting up a teammate for a one-time goal. It's his playmaking's there. He's got the vision, he's got the offensive awareness, and he's got the passing ability. Again, there are inconsistencies with his passing and shooting and his overall offensive skill set, but the awareness is there. The skating is there. The shooting ability is there. The passing ability was there from time to time, and he flashed high-end passing ability. And I think at the end of the day, that's what matters when it comes to prospects. Do they flash it enough? And he flashed it enough for me to think that it will translate to the next level. In transition, he is lethal. His skating ability, again, in stick handling, he opens up the ice for himself, and that's even more so in the neutral zone. His ability to just take the puck and go with it at full speed is just dirty. And defensively, he's reliable. He may not change the game, win games defensively like a Patrice Bergeron, but he is very sound in the defensive zone. Good positioning. Again, good awareness. Overall, this kid has really high awareness, and he will be a capable 200-foot player at the NHL level. Now, I'm not going to jump out and say that he's going to be an elite player at the next level. I think he needs to prove next year that he can put up, and again, over a point per game with the Saskatoon Blades. But if he is able to show on a more consistent level that his offensive capabilities are there, and he continues to show that his defensive abilities are very reliable, he can easily be a top six player at the next level. As of right now, I'd say he's more a middle six center. He is versatile. He's played on the wing before, though the move to center made him a lot better. He does have top six upside, though, and I wouldn't count him out. And I think San Jose got an absolute diamond in the rough with that Tristan Robbins selection.
He might not be the biggest player in the world, but he's no slouch physically, too. He's not exactly overpowered from what I've seen. And just an overall really well-rounded player, and he's going to be something. We'll see what he will become, but ultimately just super solid. Speaking of the last couple days, lots of things have happened lately, some of which I agree with, some of which I disagree with. And Jacob Markstrom, I love this man. I'm surprised he didn't break his back carrying the horrible defensive team that is the Vancouver Canucks. Like, that was painful to watch. But a full no-move clause over a 6x6 contract with the Calgary Flames.
Rough.
On a goalie who's really had 2 good years, 1.5 really good years. This could go great if he retains his physical capabilities right through those 6 years. But if he falls off, and goalies are notorious for being remarkably volatile, this contract is, you can't really buy it out. You can't trade it. You're just stuck with it. So this could go south really quick on the Calgary Flames.
Another deal in free agency that could go really bad. It stemmed from a trade that was made earlier. Josh Anderson signing with the Montreal Canadiens after getting traded for Max Domi. 7 years for a guy who's coming off a massive injury. It's not a small injury. He missed almost all the season, put up only a couple of points. 7 years at a very expensive contract too. It doesn't make sense. Josh Anderson is a good player, and he brings to the table what Montreal wants. He's got offensive upside. It was just the 2018 to 19 season where he had 27 goals scored, which is nothing to just, scoff at. I mean, it's impressive totals, especially for a guy that's known more so for his physical abilities. But signing him to a 7-year deal, regardless of the average, even if he signed for like $3 to $4 million per, the $7 million 7-year term is just terrible.
It can go bad so fast.
Yes.
And he's being paid as if Montreal expects him to step in and be an instant 30-goal scorer in the top six. He's had over 30 points once in his career.
Yep.
This is just, it can go really poorly really fast, especially with the type of game that he plays and his history with injuries.
Yeah.
It's really risky. It could pay off amazingly, but it's also a really, really tough risk to take, especially when you're giving on Max Domi, who's a incredible playmaker, if not.
Oh yeah. That's what makes it even worse. It's the fact that they gave up Max Domi and a third for Josh Anderson. It's just a backwards move.
On the trade market, OEL, a deal was not done by his Friday deadline set by the agent, so it seems as if he's going to be staying in the desert, and by the desert, I mean Arizona, because Vegas is chasing a different $8 million defenseman.
That $8 million defenseman is Alex Pietrangelo, who just today was touring Vegas, and you said you were 10 minutes away from him at one point today.
Yeah, I was playing hockey today at Las Vegas Ice, but Alex Pietrangelo, he was at TNA, he was spotted at CNA, City National Arena, and apparently he was touring the Summerlin area looking at schools, and I think that says a lot as to how seriously he's taking this idea. And it sounds far-fetched that a team like Vegas that's been able to like almost buy their way to success, where they just, every time they want a player, they find a way to go out and get him, and that's incredible. Vegas is quite a destination for free agents, it seems, and they're a cold-blooded team. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. And we're going to see probably the next day or two what happens to Pietrangelo, and I have a feeling once that happens, a lot of dominoes are going to fall.
And to stick with the goaltending market, Robin Lehner extends with your hometown and favorite Vegas Golden Knights team. Just take me through that deal. What does it look like for you guys, especially since Pietrangelo might be coming to Vegas as well? Like, what does this deal mean for not just the now, but the future?
I think this deal's a big statement because I think it all but seals Fleury's gone. And Fleury's been the face of this franchise. Some people are higher on him than others. I know advanced stats don't suggest he's as good as many think he is. I'm personally somewhere in the middle. But I think it's a statement that Vegas is going to do whatever it takes to what they think will help them win. And if that doesn't involve Marc-Andre Fleury, it doesn't involve Marc-Andre Fleury. And this ruthless approach is something I don't think we've seen enough in hockey, because a lot of this game is based off of emotional decisions and making sure you keep a good reputation. It's why we don't see offer sheets all that often. And I think it's a big statement. And the contract itself looks incredible after we saw the Jacob Markstrom contract get signed. 5x5 for goalie. That's arguably equally as good without that no move clause situation.
Braden Holtby joining the Vancouver Canucks to sort of replace Jacob Markstrom and sort of not. It's going to be a tandem with Thatcher Demko, as to be expected. I mean, the way Thatcher Demko finished the playoffs, he was an absolute stud in those games. I don't know what happened with Thatcher Demko in that series. He just came alive and almost stole the series. for Vancouver. I mean, he came out of nowhere and he looks poised to not just start, but to steal the starting crease from a veteran in Braden Holtby. So take me through that deal. Obviously, you're more in tune with the whole the whole Vancouver Canucks organization. So just take me through, what this Braden Holtby deal means.
In an offseason full of all sorts of chaos and turmoil for the Canucks organization, losing out on Markstrom, Tanev, Barry, probably Toffoli, Stetcher left for a very affordable contract in Detroit. I'm really iffy on the Holtby contract in that I think it's a touch steep, but it's also a great mentorship opportunity for Thatcher Demko and a noted great human being in Braden Holtby. Great teammate, great in the community. I think this is going to be interesting to watch because he could be Seattle's Marc-Andre Fleury coming in on an expiring deal. A former franchise goalie looking for a rebound. We'll see what happens this year. I think he's coming to be a 1A, 1B situation with Thatcher Demko. And I don't think Vancouver's aiming to create a goalie controversy here. But we'll see what happens. It would be very 2020 for Holtby to just all of a sudden return to his old form. And I don't know. There's so much going on with this team, and I know a lot of Canucks fans are super upset about it because they've made some very strange decisions. But I don't mind this one.
Another strange decision was Torrey Krug going to the St. Louis Blues. I don't think many people really expected that, especially since St. Louis was still trying to reel in Alex Pietrangelo. Now this means Pietrangelo's out, and he's officially in the market for a new team. And just the Torrey Krug deal, I live in Boston, so I've watched a lot of Bruins games in my life, obviously. I've watched Krug grow into the player that he became. I remember the day that Krug really made an impact at the NHL level. My family members were talking about it like, oh, have you seen this Krug kid? He's awesome. And I remember when Krug first started hitting that ice for the Boston Bruins and really starting to make an impact. And I can tell you right now, as someone who, again, is within the Boston area, I can tell you right now, Torrey Krug meant a lot to the fan base and a lot to the organization. He is what Bruins fans would epitomize as a Bruin and what they stand for. So Torrey Krug is one of those guys that the Bruins fans are hurt. They're hurt by this. But look at the deal. 7 years at 6.5. Oh, that one hurts. I don't think St. Louis is going to be a fan of that with the style that Krug plays. He plays with a little bit of an edge. He plays a little bit physical. Usually players who play like that, especially when they're undersized like Krug is, they don't last very long in this league. So signing an already aging defender to a long-term deal at a high price doesn't seem like a very bold move on behalf of the St. Louis Blues.
And this is all kind of rich coming from a fan of a team that has Tyler Myers linked to a stupid deal. But this is a question mark for me. Because St. Louis is replacing arguably a top 3 defenseman in the league in Alex Pietrangelo with Torrey Krug. And Pietrangelo himself was caught off guard from the signing. He hadn't told them no. I think this was a move made out of fear, and we're going to see how it turns out. Krug is quite the good defenseman when it comes to offense. But we'll see how long he holds up, and we'll see how this turns out in a couple of years. It is steep for a flat cap world, though, as we know. We don't know how long it's going to stay this way.
Another question mark, you brought that up with the question mark of a deal for Torrey Krug and whether or not he'll last. Another question mark in the league is what's going on in Tampa Bay with Tyler Johnson. Came out that they sat down with Tyler Johnson and his agent to talk about a potential deal. He submitted a short list, and then that list expanded to 8 teams, and no deal came to fruition. And then, to the shock of everyone, on the first day of free agency, he was sent on waivers to go down to the Syracuse Crunch, and nobody claimed him. My question is, are teams scared with the financial situation? Are teams scared of the Seattle expansion draft? Or are teams just not wanting to help out the Tampa Bay Lightning in any way, even if it means they get a free player, capable player, in Tyler Johnson? I don't know what the deal is in Tampa Bay, but it's one that is worth monitoring because Julien Brisebois is in a very, very difficult situation. And with Stamkos trade rumors, it might come to fruition if they aren't able to move a guy like Tyler Johnson out sooner rather than later. There's only so much time they can spend without bringing back Cirelli and Sergachev.
it's not often that you see a player of the caliber of Tyler Johnson put on waivers, much less clear waivers. And it's really showing the uncertainty in the flat cap world. And I think a lot of teams are afraid both to help the Tampa Bay Lightning as well as take on that cap hit. And it's just really interesting to see how this is all going to play out because a big name like Steven Stamkos might end up getting moved because of this situation.
Oh, 100%. And to stay on the topic of Tampa Bay, they re-signed Patrick Maroon, which is actually a really good move on their behalf. 2 years, $900,000 to get a guy of Patrick Maroon's caliber with the play style that he has and the impact that he made in the playoffs for them. That's a very good signing for them. And to stay in Florida, Alexander Wenberg, who was recently bought out by the Columbus Blue Jackets, makes a home there. And I think this is an incredible signing for the Florida Panthers and one that might have gone under the radar.
I think Wenberg's a great playmaker and a great defensive player. He's had his troubles finishing. He's not that fond of shooting the puck from what I've seen. But Florida has players that can finish. And a Wenberg-Tippett duo could be really interesting going into the future.
Oh, for sure. And another guy that's defensively capable, Valery Nikushkin. He was extended, and I know you really loved that extension if you want to go into it.
Nichushkin is one of the analytical darlings of the NHL, and he's been pretty reliable defensively. He's arguably been one of the best pure shutdown wingers in the NHL this year. Some people love analytics more than others, but overall, I really like this, especially for that cap hit. I think it was 2.5 by 2, which is a great deal for a contending Avalanche team that needs that depth down the wing. And he's no slouch offensively either. He's great at driving play, and he has his toolkit that he's not afraid to use. So overall, I'm a big fan of this signing, and I think it's a really reasonable cap hit for the quality of player they were getting.
Oh, 100%. It's a great signing for them. And now to get into the questions here, I put out a tweet asking for the viewers questions that they have relevant to the draft or free agency, whatever they wanted to hear. And I got several. So starting, Parker Wanner from Twitter said, thoughts on Marco Rossi and Jake Sanderson. So Marco Rossi, again, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He is a very, very good prospect. I expected him again to go top 5 at the very least, go early in the top 10, like 6th, 7th at the latest. And he falls to 9th behind the likes of Jack Quinn. And I think that that was an incredible draft pick for the Minnesota Wilds. And I think he's one of those guys that he is small, but he is strong on his skates and can stay at center. I know a lot of people say undersized guys will move to the wing at the next level. He's one of those guys that won't. He can hold his ground. He can defend against the cycle. He's strong in the defensive zone. He's strong in the offensive zone. We saw what he can do offensively in the OHL, dominating. He had almost like 2.5 points per game. I mean, he just lit up the OHL with the 67s, and he's just an incredible talent, and he easily has elite upside. The Minnesota Wild certainly got a steal, especially since they're trying to address center. And as for Jake Sanderson, I think taking him at 5th overall was a mistake. It was kind of inevitable that a defenseman was going to go top 5, especially with Ottawa owning 2 of the top 5 picks. Is Jake Sanderson worthy of a top 5 pick? No. But was he the best defenseman in the draft? You can argue he had a 1A, 1B battle with Jamie Drysdale. For me, Jake Sanderson has what Jamie Drysdale doesn't in a lot of ways, and that's extremely solid defensive zone coverage and extremely high defensive awareness as well. He doesn't have the offensive upside that Jamie Drysdale possesses, but you look at a guy like Jake Sanderson, and he is a very good shutdown defenseman. He's good against the rush, and he is easily the best transitional defenseman in this draft, and it's not particularly close. I mean, he dominates in zone exits, and he's right up there with the offensive defenseman, Jamie Drysdale, in zone entries. I mean, he is incredible and dangerous on transition. And again, he might not have that offensive upside, but the transitional game is there, the defensive game is there, and he only needs to work on a few things in the offensive zone to become truly game-changing. I think Jake Sanderson will be a very good pick for Ottawa, even if it is a little bit risky in the top 5.
And Ottawa now has Brandstrom, Chabot, and Sanderson down the left side, which is absolutely incredible.
Oh, for sure.
circling back to Marco Rossi, one of the main things that stands out to me is his work ethic, and he's, from what I've heard from sources close to Ottawa, is he's in the gym constantly. He's built really solidly. He's over 180 pounds at 5'9", but that's probably being generous. He's probably a little bit shorter than that.
Yeah.
But super fit, in the gym all the time, works his tail off, and I think that drive is going to push him to be the best player he can be at the NHL level.
100%. Again, the dominance and the work ethic that he has is world class. Next question comes from Gone Puck Wild Fansided. If the OHL doesn't play this season due to COVID, is there a chance Rossi makes the Wild out of camp? And this is a very, very good question to stay on Marco Rossi here. Again, his work ethic, like you said, just hitting the gym, that strong build that he has. He doesn't have an NHL ready frame. Again, 5'9", being generous, he could even be 5'7". He's still a very good prospect. And the numbers that he put up in the CHL this year were just unbelievable. He can easily make the NHL with or without COVID delaying the season in the CHL. I don't think it matters what happens in the OHL. He can easily make the NHL roster out of camp. I wouldn't be shocked by it. He is just that good. Will there be some growing pains? Absolutely. I feel like if you were to bring him into the NHL roster, he'd have to play third line, which I don't think is a big issue with some of Minnesota's signings. But man, he's so good, and I wouldn't bat an eye if he played second line minutes right out of the gates. He is that good, and I think again Minnesota just got an absolute steal in the first round there at 9.
He's an outstanding talent. And one interesting thought could be they do have Kirill Kaprizov, who's a noted incredible offensive talent, also a rookie this upcoming year. If Rossi shows up at camp and proves that he can fit, I wonder if we could possibly see that duo. And I feel like down the future, that's going to be their 1C, one winger combo.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
for a team in need of that offensive punch. And
For
maybe you
sure.
throw Fiala on that line, and that would be incredible.
Yeah, that would be lethal. If everything works out for Minnesota, that would be lethal. Third question from Frederick Franson, our good friend Fred from Puck 77 back in those days. Does Minnesota, after this draft, have one of the best prospect pools in the NHL? And this is one that we kind of disagree on. Before we started the podcast, we kind of ran through the questions, and you said absolutely not. I disagree because you have the LA Kings and the Montreal Canadiens having just loaded prospect pools. Other than that, it's kind of a toss-up. There's a lot of mid-tier prospect pools, but none that really stand out. Taking Marco Rossi at 9th overall is unbelievable, and they've done really, really well with other guys. Like you said, Kaprizov, they have a very good prospect pool. I really believe that. And again, you can give me your thoughts on it, but I think they're one of the best. I wouldn't say top 3, but I think LA, Montreal are top 2 easily. I could even see Detroit up there. Colorado's up there. So I don't think they're a top 3, top 5 prospect pool, but they're certainly top 10. I don't see how they wouldn't be top 10. So absolutely, I think they have one of the best prospect pools in the NHL.
I could absolutely hear an argument for top 10. But when it comes to outside just prospect pools, situationally how the team is doing, I'm not too hot on their future outlook, especially with all those big contracts for aging players. I hope they pull it together. I've always kind of rooted for the Wild. Haven't held that grudge from the old West Coast Express era Canucks rivalry. I was barely alive back then. But we'll see how it goes. I'm not a big fan of him going forward, but we'll see. Fiala is incredible, and maybe he takes another step forward and becomes one of those true elite players in the NHL. I know he torched my team in the play-in round.
And another question, the fourth question comes from our best buddy Mork on Twitter, known as @Vesnolevsky. He asked, will Sergachev and Sorelli take cheap bridge deals like Point and Kucherov? I'll let you lead off on this answer.
So I think with Sergachev, especially with the market for young defensemen, Tampa will probably want to get him locked up if they can clear the cap space as long term as they can. Probably to a somewhat team friendly deal, as we've seen contracts like Shea Theodore's pay off tremendously for the team that signed him. 5.2 was scoffed at a little bit at the time, but man, has that looked really good so far as Shea Theodore solidifies himself as, in my opinion, a top 10 defenseman in the NHL. I think Anthony Cirelli ultimately does sign a bridge deal, though, because he hasn't really proven himself. He had an outstanding year this year. I want to see if he does it again.
For me, I kind of have the same viewpoint. I think Sorelli does take a bridge deal. As for the Sergachev end of things, I believe he will also take a bridge deal, and here's why. Ryan McDonough, Victor Hedman, and Sergachev, if he's able to re-sign, will be on the left side of the Tampa Bay defense. Sergachev has the versatility to play on the right side, but John Cooper has come out and said he loves having the ability to play, to roll out Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev and to constantly have them out on the ice throughout the entire 60 minutes. It is obviously it's a massive advantage over every other NHL team to have three incredible talents on defense on the ice constantly, just rolling. So they're going to want to keep him on the left side. I feel like they'll sign Sergachev to a bridge deal to go to the end of McDonough's contract. And once McDonough and Sergachev are free agents, they cut bait with McDonough, who will be past his prime at that point, and then they'll be able to give Sergachev that big deal. They promised Point a big deal. We'll see what happens. They promised Kucherov a big deal. He's got 9.5. They promised Stamkos a big deal. Obviously, you saw what he was signed to. So at the end of the day, and they did it with Killorn, they did it with Palat, they did it with Johnson. I mean, there's a history of Tampa giving up bridge deals for a certain amount of time and then paying up when the time comes to those players. I feel like Sergachev's going to be next in line. I feel like Cirelli could potentially be next in line, maybe to sign until the end of Stamkos' deal or somewhere towards the end of Stamkos' deal to get paid and take a bigger role to kind of sort of replace Stamkos to a degree once he starts to decline. So I see both of those guys kind of taking a bridge deal there, and it makes a lot of sense if you look at it in depth. But who knows? We'll have to see what happens if they're even able to bring both guys back. And last question here coming from Connor Criscuola on Twitter. Any fear of offer sheets in Tampa, or is it just hype again? I'll let you lead off on that question.
So I don't think Sergachev or Cirelli will get an offer sheet because ultimately I don't think GMs will have the courage to do that. I think there's a couple teams that are really desperate, especially get a right-handed defenseman, mostly the Vancouver Canucks, because they whiffed on every single free agent other than Holtby they've chased this year. I could see them potentially offer sheeting Cernak in the 4.2 range, giving up a second-round pick as compensation if Tampa can't clear Tyler Johnson out. And I think that'd be an excellent deal for a defenseman of Cernak's caliber. But other than that, I don't think I see much of a risk for Tampa.
And I'm kind of in that same boat. Like you said, GMs really don't pony up and give offer sheets out. The last time we really saw that was last year with Montreal. And they offer sheeted Braden Point, and Braden Point said no. You look at the players that are available for Tampa. Cernak falls into this category too. None of their RFAs really want to leave. I mean, they just want a Stanley Cup. And they're not stupid. They know, hey, if we resign, even if it's for cheap, short term, we're going to get paid eventually. When we want to get paid, we'll get paid because all three of those guys are young. So in the back of their minds, they have to be thinking that too. But they also know Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, Cirelli, these guys are going to be locked up for the foreseeable future. So they have to know in the back of their minds, Vasilevsky's locked up too. Hedman's locked up too. They have to know in the back of their minds, this team is going to be Stanley Cup contenders for a while. I mean, these teams are going to be at the top of the league for a while. Why wouldn't we want to stay here? So I feel like if a team, especially if it's Montreal, Detroit, New Jersey, some of those lower tier teams who have cap space, even if it's them, giving them a big contract, I feel like they're not going to accept it because they see what's in Tampa. The weather, the teammates, the friendships that they've made, everything here, they're going to want to stay.
The only way I would see an offer sheet of any type for a player on Tampa is if it's a full contender.
But
maybe even a team like Vegas, say they ship away Nate Schmidt, not a right-handed, but he plays the right side. That clears about $6 million. Maybe you see them make space for a right-handed defenseman. It could be interesting to see fold out because I don't think there's many teams that a player might consider leaving Tampa for, but one could be the Vegas Golden Knights. They seem to be a super favorable destination at the moment.
we'll see how it all plays out. But ultimately, and I think we're both on the same page here, offer sheets should not be too big of an issue. But at the same time, Julien Brisebois should still pony up and do what he has to do to free those guys up, free the cap space up for those guys, I should say, and get a deal done as soon as possible because the season is fast approaching. Obviously, with everything that's happened with COVID, there's a January 1st start date. Doesn't have time. The clock is ticking. He can't do what he did with Braden Point last year. Ultimately, he's got to get a move on, regardless if offer sheets are an issue or not. And it's a matter of when he'll be able to get that done. All right, so thank you guys for listening. Next week, we're going to talk about trades. And once everything calms down from free agency, we'll really start to get a little bit more in depth with free agent signings, winners and losers from free agency. And again, we'll talk about trades, like I said, what we liked, what we didn't like in those trades, and might even do a little bit more in the draft, depending on questions for next week. But we are always going to have questions up. Stay tuned for a potential bonus episode with Samuel Turpak of Dauber Prospects. We're going to obviously talk about the draft. When he comes on again, bonus episode for you guys if we're able to find some availability for him and us, of course. So yeah, that's it for today. And stay tuned next week for episode 3 of the Post and Out podcast. This is Kyle Pereira signing out for the night. I'll see you, Niels. And have a good one.
Yes. Have a great night or
For
day or
watching.
how you're watching this.